Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's video will be about a piece of news regarding Minetest. This piece of news is something that has been being debated for several years, but it has recently been decided to rename Minetest. And so there is a blog post on the Minetest blog describing some of the decisions made along the way, and a lot of you have been probably wondering, what is this new name that they have decided to adopt for Minetest? Well, here it is right here, Luanti. This name is a wordplay on the Finnish word
Luanti,
and that word means creation. It also is a little bit of a wordplay on the programming language Lua, which is used in the Minetest engine. So that is the name that they have decided to use. And today in this video I will be talking a little bit about how this started, how this discussion started, where it started. So moving forward, actually a very useful change that they have decided to do, which I myself and several other people have brought up, is that renaming the engine, you would have to rename namespaces. What they're doing is they're keeping Minetest namespace as an alias, and then they're using core, which is used in all the core mods. Instead of Minetest.register something, it would be core.register something. And once they change this, it's going to be core everything. So even in your mods, you can do core.register node. It'll act the same thing as if you did Minetest.register node. From my understanding, they will not be adding the Luanti as a namespace, so it'll just be core and an alias Minetest. Now we move on to the Minetest forums. This is a Minetest forum that has received a lot of attention by the fact that it's 10 pages, where it was started by this user named Runs, who suggested this name from a language called Esperanto. So it's a translation of craft block. So there's a lot of back and forth on the name changing in this forum thread, but what I wanted to look at is when me and Wild get into this situation here. We obviously push back against the name change because actually a lot of people in this thread believe that this name change isn't a good idea, and we all agree that we would like to have Minetest continue as Minetest forever. Like, having a name change is not in the best interest of everyone involved. However, I do understand the reasons why you would want a name change, but I do feel like having a name change is not an amazing option, and I would rather that it hadn't ever happened. So in Wild's post here, it says, just keep it the same as it is now, Minetest. There's too much to change as it is. He's talking about regular updates. There's so much work being done in Minetest that all this worry about a name change is going to slow that down, and we're going to get less updates and less features. The name Minetest is obsolete according to Celeron55 and Ruben Wardy, so get used to the idea that it will be changed. Supporting Minetest as a name is absurd and foolhardy. Firstly, it can be kind of taken as obsolete. They don't say that it's like a horrible name or anything. Like, obsolete, I guess, is a fairly good word to use, but you have to be careful that you don't go too far with that. So this whole topic here is made by this user as almost trying to push for getting a new Minetest name, or a new name for Minetest, where it could have started as just a let's just look for good names, but how this user has turned his topic post and how the rest of the conversation has gone, he's trying to push for a change in the name, which makes sense, but I feel like in this conversation he was not exactly being nice about it.
Why you bullying me?
And this is the actual GitHub Issues thread for name discussions. And up till now, I've been kind of talking about how I hate the name change. So as we all know, Minetest has existed for a very long time, and when the name was selected by Celeron55, he was the only one working on it, and at this point it's been such a long time with that name that a lot of people are kind of either bored of it or they just don't like it, because it is kind of a low level name. There isn't anything special about it, and it is a lot like Minecraft or a lot of those other games, and it was meant to be like that, and that's actually one of the biggest arguments for the name change. However, I'm saying that this name change is good and all, but I don't exactly like this name. I know this is probably a controversial opinion, but this name, in my opinion, isn't the best one that could have been chosen. I do understand the rules in here, or like the idea of like not doing voxel or like free open. One of my suggestions at one point was open cube, and that's just like both of these. I understand why, because Minetest is not, at this point, it's not limited to voxel. Well, I mean, a little bit, but it's not 3D, even though it is open source. That should be a part of the branding. You shouldn't have to say it in the name. So that's something that Minetest does well, because it doesn't say open voxel test, something like that. It says Minetest. So that's something that the original name does fairly well. They say in their reasoning behind the naming, we decided to avoid using free or libri in the name because we don't think it does the project justice. So basically what they're saying is that it's kind of a superficial thing to add to the name. You don't need it, because normally when you have this branding, so for example, Blender doesn't have to say that it's open source. It doesn't have to say that it's a 3D modeling system with a lot of other systems. It doesn't have to say any of that. It's just this brand that is built around this name, Blender. So that's kind of what they're trying to do here with Luanti. One of the bigger reasons why I don't like this name is that, as I said before, it is very much a strange name. That is kind of my opinion, because my first language is English, so this Finnish does seem weird. So I understand that for a lot of people, this is actually a name that doesn't seem like super strange, but it is still kind of a strange name. So yeah, that's kind of my ideas on the name change and what I think about it, why I think it was a good idea, but it may not have been done the best way, and I feel like not everybody was fully interacting with this. It kind of just happened over the weekend. Like, I got off the computer Saturday, I didn't log on Sunday, and now it's Monday, and Minetest has a new name. There was not really anything that was said about this or anything, and I understand that, oh hey, I'm not very far into the content creation for Minetest, so like I have very little influence in this realm. But you got to think that there really wasn't that much even warning that this is going to happen. You wake up Monday morning and there's this announcement in the Minetest Discord saying the name has been changed, and there's a blog post about it. Like, I mean, you look at this, all this text, someone like wrote this up like before the name change was announced and all that. It obviously wasn't just written up quickly. I mean, it probably took like an hour or so. So there was thought. There was actually a lot of thought put into this. That's another point, is that there's actually a lot of thought put into this, which is something that I'm very happy for. For example, in this forum, there's a lot of information that I laid down, that Wild laid down, that a lot of other people laid down, like ideas and all that were taken into account. For example, like I was talking about before, the namespace changes are well executed. I love this idea. I like what they're doing here. And I feel like even if it wasn't executed perfectly, it's still a good direction, and I look forward to being able to use Luanti even if I don't love the name as much as I did Minetest.